Welcome back to the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside site publisher Tim Watts. And Tim, the reveal that we've all been waiting on, the college football playoff set for the 2024 installment. And I don't know how many people are glad, how many people are mad, how many people are sad with the news, Tim, that the Alabama Crimson Tide is back in the CFP.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to get the debate this year. Florida State is a good football team. If Jordan Travis was playing, I get it. Georgia is definitely a top 4 team to me as well. You know what I mean? You see all that. But with that said, Alabama was the right choice. It was the punishment. If Texas' best whole thing for Texas to get in is beating Alabama, that tells you how good a win against Alabama is, how good Alabama is. And then to beat Georgia, not a fluke, not a bunch of penalties and all the crybabying that we're trying to see. Even the crybabying's been limited. They beat a really good Georgia team, a really good Georgia team in a good game. So I thought Alabama would be the choice this morning, but I didn't know. I mean, you had to do something unprecedented, right?
Yeah.
You had to.
Undefeated conference, Power 5 conference champ.
I mean, if you come down to it, though, I go straight to Vegas and I think, what is Bama favored versus FSU? What is Michigan favored versus FSU? Is Michigan even favored over Bama? I mean, we're having a completely different discussion. You roll that FSU team out to Georgia in a bowl game, and I think they're scheduled there, right?
Yeah, I think I saw an early line at Georgia like 13.
That's exactly what it would have been.
Yeah.
In the college football playoff. So that tells me Georgia's the better team. Alabama beat Georgia. But when you come down to that committee, the best part is there'll probably be 2 teams worthy next year, and we'll be choosing some 4-loss team as the 12th seed.
Yeah, I think they got it right. I said it last night on Instant Analysis. Basically, the field that we got today was the field I thought should be in this college football playoff. I thought, as much as anything, the legitimacy of the college football playoff this time around hinged on SEC representation. And, we're not talking about an SEC rep like a year ago that you would have had with LSU. Had LSU beaten Georgia last year, it would have been a 3-loss team. No way.
Right. Totally different. Yeah, totally
This is not only a 1-loss SEC champ, Tim. It's a 9-0 in the SEC team in Alabama. Alabama didn't lose a game on the way to the, I keep hearing about they're a 1-loss team. Well, in the best league in college football, they're 9-0, Tim.
And this is the things like Alabama's wins. For some reason, they just like dismount. I don't even see like Ole Miss mentioned. Ole Miss has 2 losses, Bama and Georgia. They're a top 10 team. They'd be in the 12-man playoff. I mean,
they've got 3 top 14 wins.
Absolutely.
And Missouri, another SEC team, is in there. So you got 5 SEC teams in the top 15.
Yeah, Bama went down 7-0, led the rest of the game once they were up 10-7. I mean, that was a good win against Georgia. They took control at Tennessee. They took control against LSU. Texas, by the way, is a 3 seed. That's their loss. And early Bama, I'm not going to make any excuses. Texas beat Alabama that night. Different Alabama team and a different Texas team, by the way. 2 different teams going in the right directions. But that's a 3 seed that's probably going to be favored over the 2 seed, right? I mean, I'm taking Texas versus Washington, and I like Washington.
I like Texas against Washington. Yeah.
I like Washington's football team. They stopped the run. They got a vertical
I think
threat.
Texas, though's more Alabama-ish
Absolutely
than Michigan or Washington.
Yeah.
The Rose Bowl's bummed out because they didn't get the traditional Pac-12 Big Ten matchup that they covet. But Alabama going back out to Pasadena for the first time since the 2010 BCS National Championship game to take on the Michigan Wolverines. It's a tough situation for Florida State, man. If Jordan Travis is healthy, I would have been shocked if Alabama would have got. I think that's essentially what it came down to, Tim.
Yeah,
you had a couple of games to see this Florida State team without Jordan Travis. It wasn't pretty. All the credit in the world to Florida State last night. That defense is elite.
They were great.
It is very much college football playoff caliber. But you talked about it. If you put that team with that quarterback situation in a playoff, even without an SEC team in it, it's going to be a problem.
Look,
and now, unfortunately, the prize, the parting gift for Florida State is that it looks like it gets an SEC team in a non-playoff.
They had a chance to prove they deserve to be there. Well, you got a Georgia team that's probably going to have a few guys sitting out going pro, not risking. I mean, it's not the college football playoff, so you can see some guys sit out.
Yeah, I
You
mean
got
Brock Bowers doesn't play in that game, does he? With the injuries and stuff.
the kid's a warrior. You know what I mean? I think no. I think even maybe Kirby and them are no. And also they've got. We discussed this before the game. Um, we have seen Georgia has a bunch of young tight end talent there too. Now they're not. They go tight end heavy in Athens. But I mean, when you look at this and the people that are mad, what's funny? The people that cover college football that hate the SEC. Wait, how do you love college football and hate the SEC? That is the best conference
It's fatigue
in the country.
It's fatigue.
It doesn't
13
mean
of the last 17 national champions,
it
Tim.
doesn't
That's
mean
what it
Texas
is.
isn't good. They are good. It doesn't mean Washington's not good. They are good. It doesn't mean Michigan's not good. They are good. But the SEC is the best conference, regardless of how butthurt they are. And they also set it up. I mean, I was watching it last night on Twitter, and I ignore a lot of the mess, but they're like, you got to be FSU's, got to be. Because then they got a talking point today. They get to yell real loud,
It doesn't have to be Florida State, unfortunately, for the Seminoles. Again, you have to take into account it is a quarterback era in the sport of football. And if you aren't in a legitimate place and you're talking about the top 4 teams, I mean, we saw it yesterday. We saw it really throughout the weekend. You have to be at a high, you can't hide the quarterback anymore. There used to be a period, even for Alabama in the early 90s, some of the success they had under Gene Stallings. You could play around the quarterback. Once you get to the penultimate games in this sport, you can't do that any longer. Oklahoma State's quarterback situation yesterday in comparison to Texas's with Quinn Ewers, there was no way Oklahoma State was going to keep pace with that Texas offense. So, big winners in all this. Obviously, Alabama a big winner. I think Washington and Texas are big winners because they don't see Alabama in the first round. The prize for Michigan being the number 1 seed is that you get the hottest team in college football right now in the Alabama Crimson Tide. So I got the Wolverines as among the few losers in all this.
Well, I mean, technically you could rank Alabama number 2, right? If you're going just on maybe number 1, who's the best team in the country. Throw it out. Who looks the best? I think there's a discussion now. Everybody, Alabama has had its struggles. It struggled against Auburn. Everyone has these kind of struggles. I think it's a long football season. I mean, me and you discuss it all the time. Every win's a good win. You think you just gotta get it and run with it. But again, Georgia, to me, I was surprised Florida State was ahead of Georgia personally. I was surprised Florida State was ahead of Georgia. I mean, Georgia's. Not just their past history. This, to me, was Georgia's year where they had the best wins from the last couple of years.
It worked out. It worked out for Georgia from a schedule perspective because Missouri especially stepped up.
Ole Miss. They've got 2 top 12 type wins, and in the past.
But they lost the Oklahoma game early in the season. You remember? They weren't able to play Oklahoma because of the SEC thing coming in next year. Mm-hmm. And as far as 5-6, that was probably tough.
Yeah. So but Georgia had, they had quality wins this year. Now the schedule favored them because they always fell at home. There's a little bit of that going their way. But I mean, obviously Georgia's a good team. I mean, it's just, to me, I'm not going to mock like it was a no-brainer. To me, it's a no-brainer because I've watched Alabama. But you absolutely can make a case for Florida State. And again, Jordan Travis plays. I don't have near the argument I have now. But without Jordan Travis, I mean, last night, they have a 78-yard touchdown run?
Oh, they were going – they had – Florida State's success came from basically the Wildcat. And I know that Florida State was down to a true freshman third-team quarterback. Rodemaker didn't play the backup.
That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it.
But you saw him against Florida, and it was a struggle for that Florida State offense. And I think something Richard the Lion here in our comments that we'll check in with, he says this committee really looks bad keeping Alabama at 8 for so long. They now remind me of the old AP poll. And I agree with some of that. The committee could have helped themselves a lot by getting Alabama up to, 6 or so, and even getting Texas up there, especially after the injury to Jordan Travis. Mm-hmm. And it was apparent he was done. This wasn't a up for debate situation. Maybe he can get back. Jordan Travis, unfortunately, was done for the season. That information was known and out there. This committee, Tim, didn't really help itself throughout the process.
I mean, they were bully on Oregon. You know what I mean? It was clear at some point that Texas for sure should have been ahead of Oregon. Bama probably should have been ahead of Oregon the way things were going. They were bullied. They were so proud they had that iPad and they were getting the cut ups and watching the games. They were so happy. Bo Nix is complete 78% of his passes, because all that factors in. And then, they go out and Washington has beat them twice. Another fact. Washington shuts down the run. I said this leading into the game. When you shut down the run like Washington does, and you get straightly into Bo Nix and 78% and the plays they try to run, Washington has a chance, and they got a quarterback that can throw vertical. Now, Pete Penix, he'll throw some different balls on you, some different arm angles, but he can throw that deep ball. They've got explosive plays. They got good cornerbacks too. So
I thought they won the line of scrimmage on both sides against Oregon.
But the whole way it's Oregon. They got this.
They ran the ball.
Who is
and
more
I
excited?
look at Washington's team. I see a bunch of Oregon's team, not to call them retreads or rejects, but Bo Nix at quarterback, Trayshawn Holden at wide receiver, Kyrie Jackson at corner.
Yeah.
Washington's got Dylan Johnson at the running back position from Mississippi State. It's like guys that aren't happy in the SEC go out to the Pac-12 and become stars.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But and so they were so all into Oregon, who didn't have a good win at the time. I mean, they had Utah as a good win. What was Utah's final record?
Utah never had their starting quarterback the entire season. He was out all year. So we talk about quarterback play and the importance of it.
Yeah, I mean, Utah ended up 8-4, fourth in the.
Whittingham's a great coach.
Oh, he absolutely
is.
They
were without their guy all season.
Yeah, and he's good. That's a clutch player. Good, changed the whole dynamics. They were still a fun team, a solid team, but no, it was a completely different team. So Oregon was they were bully on them. They did leave Bama at 8. I couldn't get over the fact that the punishment for losing to Texas seemed to be severe to me. It was like Texas was a bunch of scrubs. It's like they lost to Texas State with what's that movie where Catherine Ireland's the field goal kicker, and I got Scott Bakula at quarterback. I mean, Steve Sarkisian and Bo Davis and Quinn Ewers, and that was a good football team.
So, do you think the committee still, even up to the show today, really didn't put a lot of value in Alabama just playing Texas? Was it worth it for Alabama to play Texas? Was it pretty much the win over Georgia that pushed Alabama in the top 4 along with the injury to Jordan Travis? I felt like all along, as this thing came down to it, it was all about Alabama and Florida State, specifically because of the quarterback situation. But it never did feel like Alabama got credit for at least scheduling Texas in the non-con.
And that pisses me off because college is about competition. I look forward to that Alabama-Texas game the whole year. And even now, I don't regret for a second Alabama played that game, because losing that game really went a long way in determining what this team was, right? They persevered. They had adversity. They had to get better. They had to change some things. And they did. You saw them get better from that loss. That's what early games are about. It's like non-conference in basketball. So how are you going to tell me that's not a +1? Because, again, take out Texas, play Thompson High School, Sanford or whatever, and Bama's a lock to get in. Not only are they a lock to get in, they're the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Bama's the 1 seed if they'd have played somebody else. So I still want to see those games. I don't want to see all those games canceled. And you don't have to really cancel them with the 12-team playoff. But, I mean, you're in the SEC. Do you really want to be playing these other schools, out of conference and then heading into the SEC? I mean, you get Texas, Oklahoma jumping in. And
yeah, we've already gotten a glimpse at some of the schedules for next season in the SEC with Texas and OU coming in, and it's going to be a rough road to hoe.
I think we're going to see a lot of those games canceled personally. We'll
down
see
the road,
if I'm right.
non-cons, home and homes.
I just think they're going to say.
I think, unfortunately, it might bring back the neutral site games, where you just play one of those and you don't have to go on the road. Yeah,
I love those.
Could be. So Michigan, Tim, for Alabama. I think Saban, they got those condos across the street from the practice fields there in Tuscaloosa. You think Saban's already has a suite probably going on of those condos with Harbaugh and the Wolverines on the other side, going to make sure there's no spies or anything up there.
Shoot, I'd be posted up with somebody watching the apartments. I'd be at the practice. I'd have somebody standing up on the thing. But, I mean, Michigan's a good team. I don't think they're necessarily a fun team. They're kind of that old school, grind them out. I mean, McCarthy's last 4 games, he's passed for 60, 141, 148, 147.
That ain't going to do it.
That's definitely not going to do it. Now they're a good team. They're solid defensively. It's not going to be the same level of athletes, but Jim Harbaugh is a good coach. Has always been a good coach. Was a good coach in the NFL. You're giving him and Saban 30 days or whatever that timeline is to get ready for this game. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, you get Michigan, you get Alabama. That's college football. I think
Pasadena, man.
Yeah,
the return.
I was really hoping to see Georgia and Oregon personally. I know it's looking like Florida State, but I thought Georgia Oregon would have been a better matchup. You had Bo Nix coming back to play Georgia. You got Dan Lanning from Georgia. You got that game personally. So as you break off in these bowl games, but yeah, I mean, Michigan's a good team. They've had their moments. I know they've been caught up in the controversy and the us versus the world mentality. Well, I mean, when you create it, when you create the us versus the world, that's your fault, not our fault.
Well, nobody really knew about it, Tim. This guy just acted on his own, There really wasn't much of a concerted effort.
I love the argument. It was just a small advantage. Then why did you go to so much effort?
Well, he must not have done a good job on TCU in the playoff game last year because TCU wrecked the Wolverines out in Glendale. And last time we saw these two teams on the same field, that was the case down in the Citrus Bowl. And I know you talk about bowl games now.
Right?
Yeah, people opting out. That was the end of the 2019 season when Mack had jumped in there for Tua. And you had a couple of guys sit out for Alabama. I think Trayvon Diggs set out that game.
Set out. So, we still had some guys. We had Smitty, Ruggs. We had those guys that still played.
Judy on the first play.
Yeah, he got hurt
the top on a deep ball.
Ruggs got hurt on punt cut. How about that? We got a future first round pick out there on punt coverage right before he goes pro.
Devontae Smith did it too. Yeah.
Hey, you can talk about culture, but you kind of see the culture. And switching to Bama, the way those guys handled that last night, I mean, I'm not sure you can be any prouder. Jalen Milroe crying. Probably reminded you of AJ against LSU that year. That emotions you don't even know you have in you. I imagine there's some Bama fans crying this morning. They were like spent all day saying this wasn't a big deal, and then they saw that 4 pop up. But yeah, you saw that. You saw the way the guys handled it. Everything about it. I mean, everything about it. And I think it's for Bama fans, it's satisfactory because, even Bama fans are saying stuff like the dynasty over. Saban's lost it. They lost 2 games last year, 2 friggin' games on the last second of last year. The year before, they were in the national championship game and winning when Jamison Williams gets hurt. This is a long way from a dynasty over. You know what I mean? So,
and this is a team, unlike a year ago, that if they get the opportunity to close you out, they close you out.
I mean, look at that last drive. There was how much? 3 or 4 minutes?
Last couple of drives, yeah.
Yeah, well, that 3 minutes left. They never saw the ball.
Drive at 20-17, they go down and make it 27-17. And then at 27-24, they take the clock.
I'm not sure you can. I mean, that's what champions do. They go the victory formation. So a tip of the hat to Georgia, though. What a run they've had. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to criticize the schedule, but hey, you get jammed up. It's not, you watch college football, you see you get jammed up quickly. So that's another thing I think factoring in is that Georgia's going, Bama beat the team that would have been the 1 seed and favored in its next 2 games to go into this. I think that also factored in. I'm not sure we need a committee. I think we need Vegas to pick this stuff. You know what I mean? We got all these people looking at their iPad. Vegas is just straight up going to say, this is the Bama Michigan score. This is the Bama FSU score. These are the 4 best teams.
The BCS formula, I saw that. They wheeled that back out. Whatever you thought of the BCS, I thought they got the teams right when it was just 2. And you go back to that Alabama LSU rematch. People hated it nationally, but it was the right game. They had Bama as the 3 with Texas as the 4. I think they had it Michigan, Washington, Bama, Texas. So whatever you think of the BCS formula,
I don't think you
saw that earlier
if
too.
You're Alabama, I don't think you get super excited. I think you're pretty okay with having to face Michigan first, right? Because in the past, if you've got a scheme for, the Washington offense, you already know what Texas is. You're familiar with Texas, so you've scouted that. That staff, that team. But if you end up playing Washington, that's a completely different game than you're playing with Michigan. And we saw that before where Bama spent a lot of time figuring out how to stop Kyler Murray, and then have to quick turnaround and try to figure out that next team. I think it's easier to go with your base. Easier to go with your base defense and then figure out that guy on the back end. And
this might be a game where we see some base defense, like legitimate 3-4 stuff from Alabama with the tight ends and all the things that Harbaugh likes to get involved. Probably still a good bit of nickel, I would think. And as I recall from the Michigan Ohio State game, I think Michigan had a pretty significant injury up front. Zach Zenter, who was carted off with a leg injury in the third quarter of that win, broken tibia and fibula, underwent surgery
Please.
later that evening. So there's an injury up front
not,
that we know Michigan's dealing with.
You know, and another thing on the injury side, Alabama's getting a chance to get healthy. I mean, that's Jalen Milroe, 30 days of rest of non-contact. Oh, I mean, that's going to refresh you. That's going to refresh a fella. That's like me and you after an afternoon nap. We're good to go the rest of the day. And then you throw in Otis Lawson, who looked great. I thought Lawson did a great. Mo Gooder jumping in. Thanks, buddy.
Classy dude, Mo.
Appreciate it, man. Y'all are a really good team.
I thought it was Mo Green for a second.
I thought he's coming to, yeah.
I was making my bones out here.
Yeah, well, we had, so these guys getting healthy. I thought Lawson looked great, and I still don't think he's 100%. But I mean, you get all these guys to get 30 days of rest. I know Michigan's going to get it, but they had a little bit different. I mean, you know, it's weird. That
Kool-Aid probably needs it. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
He went out of the game in the third quarter like he got dinged.
Yeah.
Kool-Aid's going to need it, but hey, man, Trey Amos was lights out once he got in there in that corner.
I mean, the weird thing is, I saw everybody saying I saw the Georgia guys in the warm-ups, and everybody was tweeting they looked great, they were healthy and good to go. And then as they got shut down or held well below what we expected, they got injured.
I think that Bowers and McConkey were limited in how much they were used, maybe, but they were used throughout the game.
They got them opportunities.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, when they needed those guys, they tried to get them the football still.
And Bowers, he's still, I'd be surprised if he played in the bowl. And again, I don't. He's next level as far as that warrior type tight end. I mean, he's right there with, like, when you remember in the NFL where you have a guy like Rob Gronkowski. I mean, when you have those tight ends, Travis Kelce, those guys you can ride. That's what Georgia did. Another thing we should talk about is the special teams and Will Reicher taking over the
scoring lead all time for the NCAA. Yeah.
Muscled in a couple field goals, won by a field goal.
He'd burn up to be a little more consistent. He was a little bit hit and miss the last couple of games, and he had the punt last night against Georgia. Georgia had two guys back on that punt. And that sort of divided Alabama's punt coverage team to start with, and then he hits this short, low punt in the middle of the field.
And hey, that guy, I'll be honest, the Georgia guy, that's a tough catch.
He made a good play.
That's like a baseball where you have to dive for a ball. If it gets by you, buddy, that's going the distance. But I think it was, the one thing about it is I had, the Georgia impact. I mean, Caleb Downs was big. Trez Marshall with the fumble recovery has some nice plays. Burton, we talked about Burton. Look, Burton gets, some criticism because he's a high energy guy. And I saw him pushing that line. But last night when he scored the touchdown, what did he do? He just walked off the field.
Yeah.
When he
dropped a catch too.
When they broke up a pass or dropped or he incompleted a pass, he just took off and ran back. Someone had talked to him after the game. He's doing the broken heart. But I saw a Georgia player run over to love on him, hug him, and tell him congratulations. So there's some respect there, but it's okay.
I thought it was cool post game too. You saw Kirby make it a point to sort of find Jalen Milroe and congratulate him.
Yeah,
it didn't take Jalen coming to Kirby. I thought Kirby was really classy after the handshake and everything with Nick. He made it a point to dap up Jalen.
I think Kirby and Saban are in that same vein. You remember Nick going to talk to Aaron Anderson afterwards and kidding with him about playing after the LSU game. And
the game's over. Yeah.
I mean, you saw, I thought the game leading up to it was fantastic. I thought the back and forth with Saban and Kirby was excellent. The kidding around and all that kind of stuff. You can see there's a comfort level there now that probably wasn't a few years ago.
Yeah, Kirby, now that he's won a couple, I did notice that a little bit.
I think that ship will be back after this one.
It seemed to be more personal in a good way for them.
People forget, I've said, Kirby Smart, nobody wanted to beat Georgia more than Kirby Smart when he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
Nobody. Go watch when they batted down that pass with Aaron Murray. Kirby's on the field going crazy. Kirby is a competitive dude. So, I mean, you put him on, he's the guy you want on your team, because if it's not, you know what I mean, he's going to play, he's going to bite, he's going to fight. He is a competitor at every level. So I'm not surprised that they're good sports after that. I mean, obviously, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm sick. Again, to be out, to go from the 1 seed to out, that's just a hard pill to swallow. If I'm a Florida State fan, I'm sick as well. You know what I mean? I mean, it's your fate almost got you with an injury. So
what happens now though? Because we talked about this, and we'll do the recruiting show tomorrow with you and Andrew Bone here on our YouTube home. We'll do that live as well tomorrow morning. Transfer portal now and everything. How do you juggle this? If you're Nick Saban and this coaching staff, because it don't wait. All that stuff isn't going to wait. You got the team banquet tonight. We know that's an annual tradition on this Sunday. But then tomorrow, man, with the window officially open for the portal and trying to finalize things for this early signing period.
Recruiting. Yeah. I mean, we've got two official visitor weekends. We have Nick Saban's going on the road. I mean, it's going to be, going with the assistant coaches. They'll be all over the place. This 30 days is going to be a mess. You know what I mean? It's going to be a mess. Recruiting period lasts till the 20th, 22nd. The portal closes January something, right? January 4. I don't even know on my dates.
Yeah, it's about a month exactly.
So what you've got though, you've got guys that now are in the college football playoffs for not just Bama, Texas, Michigan, and Washington as well, who are thinking about hitting the portal, and they've got to hit the portal basically before these games happen, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying from Alabama's roster. Even with the college football playoff coming up, you got guys on this roster, right, that if they're planning to hit the portal and make it official tomorrow, I would expect to see some of that for Alabama's roster.
Yeah, I think.
How do you avoid it? I mean, I know Nick doesn't want the distractions, but if guys are bolting after the semester.
Well, there's guys you want to leave, are mutual decisions that's better for them somewhere else. There's guys you don't want to leave. There's guys that want to leave that are on the fence. So they're going to have
early enrollees coming in.
Yeah, a lot of 16 of 19, I think it was. So
Julian Sayin can play J.J. McCarthy on the scout team.
Yeah, that would be. And Julian was at the game, and again, I guess I've got old. I don't worry about recruiting like I used to, especially with the portal. I just think the portal changed the entire game, especially for the upper echelon guys. You need to plug and play. Your Kirby, your Ryan Day, your Steve Sarkisian, your Nick Saban. You can find a plug and play guy because it's so attractive to come in and compete and do all that kind of stuff, which is why Burton came to Alabama to begin with. That's why Trez Marshall came to Alabama, a chance to compete at a national championship and be a player when you were clogged up at Georgia wasn't throwing enough to the wide receiver for Burton. And Georgia has a log jam, some really good young backers with Marshall who got jammed up. But, I mean, these guys are going to want to come and play here. And the dreaded 3-word, NIL. I mean, you got guys that will be recruited right off your campus with big money and promises.
Guys are getting poached left and right now.
Yeah, there's not. But the good news is the one thing you don't have to worry about is where your next game's coming. You know what I mean? There's excitement. And we should point out, we said after the Texas loss multiple times, every single goal that Alabama had before the start of the season was still on the table. They wanted to win the SEC West. They wanted to win the SEC. They did both. They want to make the college football playoffs. So they did 3 of their goals already. So
absolutely. And on instant analysis last night, I had some Alabama fans tell me, look, if Alabama doesn't make the playoff, I'm fine with this season. I'm fine with 12-1 and an SEC championship, and probably as much as anything, putting an end to Georgia's run of 29 straight wins. So I think there was a high level of satisfaction for Alabama fans prior to today. But now, as you said, everything really is on the table, and the expectation moving forward is for Alabama to close the deal. 4 seed, 2 seed, doesn't matter.
Oh yeah,
everybody's going to look at Alabama as the favorite in this thing.
Yeah, that's almost like reverse psychology. Oh, it's been great, and let me be clear, Bama, we're having this discussion and Bama wasn't in the playoff. It was one of the best seasons I can remember. One of the most enjoyable seasons to see. We've, South lost to Texas. The South Florida game was just, I'll never get over the timing of that. Remember the game went out, it was delayed. It was on
The
like
weather was terrible. I mean, you
it,
play football in
yeah.
Tampa in the afternoon in September.
Well, they were holding up like a camcorder at that point because they lost their, you know what I mean? It was like a yellow filter over it. I mean, we
They were
had a lot.
FaceTiming it.
So
Yeah.
we go through all that, down in almost every game they played, right? Were they down? And this seems like we're down in down to Georgia, down to Tennessee, down to LSU. It just seems like, they were down at every game and then came back. So you saw guys like Terrence Ferguson just come out of the blue. You saw Jalen Milroe grow. Bond. There is not. I'm going to stand this guy. I loved him out of high school. I think most people did.
You did.
But he was considered a track guy, right? And he was a track guy. He's a friggin' on the fastest.
But if you watched his film, you knew.
Yes. And he also, just to see him develop into a professional ball catcher. You know what I mean? 2 hands, like we said, 2 feet down against Auburn, clear space, find a way, all that kind of good stuff. It's been just a team. I mean, you saw
Alabama's receivers in general without Ja'Cory Brooks. If I told you before the season this group was going to be as productive as they've been, Tim, and this consistent and dependable as they've been, without Ja'Cory Brooks really being able to contribute anything, I wouldn't have bought into that. I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the fun of this season was not knowing. Kevin Steele's coming in, Tommy Reese is coming in. 4th and 4 just describes it. I wasn't sure what they were doing last night. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not normal,
But they gave themselves a chance on the 3rd and 21, right?
And the play before
that, they get the 17 yards to Nyblack, who makes a contested catch against Malachi Starks, one of the best safeties in college football.
Absolutely.
They give themselves a chance to hit it. And then, like they've done over the last couple of months, a guy steps up and makes a play like Isaiah Bond.
Yeah. I mean, it was just to see that, Kirby calls a timeout, Saban calls a timeout, what's happening here. And Bond, way to go to the ball again. I mean, he's out there tracking it down like the best center fielder in Major League history. That's what he's like. He tracks balls. Unbelievable. He knows how to run up under a ball wherever it's thrown, adjust to it. We've seen that.
He made some en route adjustments too. That 3rd and 2 that they converted where Jalen pitched it forward.
Yeah.
On that play, Bond was running across the other way.
Yeah.
And then he rerouted back and got himself in position where Jalen could kind of throw that Chris Paul no look in the middle of the field. That was huge.
Mechie was great. I think he's becoming his separate safety blanket, security blanket, like Mechie was for Bryce. Yeah. James was the home run guy. But when it was, oh crap, I've got nobody open and they're on me, he's looking for Mechie. So I think the season's great. I think you look forward to playing Michigan. It's a high-profile game. That game's always going to mean something. And
so, Tim, any apologies if you're Alabama for being in this field? Do you apologize in any form or fashion?
Absolutely not. I ask why they're not ranked higher in that playoff ranking.
4? We're the 4? Thought we beat 2.
Well, I don't think definitely didn't want to put Bama and Texas in the first round. That'd have been anticlimactic. But I mean, you get a playoffs where Bama's possibly facing.
Well, they wanted Michigan. They wanted Michigan, Washington in that Rose Bowl. That's where Alabama probably screwed them up is just as much as anything. Because if Georgia wins, then you can have Michigan, Washington as your 2-3, and they can play in the Rose Bowl. And then your sugar can be Texas and Georgia, which would have made total sense.
And that would have been a great matchup too. You go back to the we're back Texas moment against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
Well, Bebo tried to kill Uga before that game. Remember on the sideline?
That's a 14 playoff that would have been good too. And again, not to pick on FSU, but things changed. They're the one team that I just felt that had no business in the discussion because of the quarterback situation. But if the quarterback was healthy, I just don't think that Alabama would have got in. And I also think FSU wouldn't have struggled against Florida. They wouldn't have struggled against Louisville. No. They wouldn't have. I mean, it'd have been a different animal there. And Bama would have had basically bad luck. There's not much you can say, but
it would have been the exception year going into the 12-team playoff, man. And you think about that coming on board, you're going to have to win 4 games. If you're in that first round of those kind of 5 through 12s in that playoff, you're going to have to win like 4 games. in the playoff to win the national
Oh
championship.
yeah, we're going to end up playing more than the NFL. I keep telling you, we're going to be like Bama's 17-3 heading into the championship game. But
Yeah.
Michigan, we haven't really discussed Michigan as much. What do you think? How do they match up here?
I haven't gotten into them that much. We talked about it
I'm the
earlier.
same.
There are some staples of hardball teams that you can expect. They're gonna try to win the line of scrimmage on both sides. Typically, it seems like they like to play between the hash marks. They're tight end oriented. And actually, I give them credit because we've seen more and more of tight ends in the last few years. It's kind of feels like it's reverted back. We've seen Georgia obviously make great use of tight ends. Alabama, it's significant with the tight end position and what it likes to do. I go back to again, uh, is Michigan going to be explosive enough? Because you're going to have to produce some explosive plays, in my opinion, to beat Alabama. Whenever Alabama has matched up with Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, those kind of teams, Tim, the first thing I think about is, do you have explosiveness? Do you have enough explosiveness
I think they're just
to
going to
make
try to.
Alabama pay?
I think they're just going to try to grind you out, and I think that was perfect for what the league they did. They only had to come up and. I mean, Penn State was a good team, but just a mess on offense, right? Same as Iowa. Iowa had a good defense. If they'd have had, I don't know who it was that texted me last night and said if Iowa had Ty Simpson, they'd be in this game.
They'll
None of that
play
was
defense now.
They are defense. Yeah, they are a good defensive team. They had any kind of offense, but
Nothing
I
offensively.
like Michigan's running back, the little guy Blake Corum, I think his name is.
Yeah,
I
back from the
like him
injury.
because I saw some Thanksgiving stuff. He took his NIL money and was buying Thanksgiving turkeys. I know a lot of guys did that, but it means something. He's a small guy, 5'8", and kind of a grinder. You look at their stats, the leading rusher.
It's kind of a Ray Davis from Kentucky type.
Yeah, they get around. They get that leading rusher for them, gets right around 100 yards. But outside of anomaly against Penn State, he rushed for 145. But if I remember, it was a Penn State game where they ran like 32 times in a row. Was that game?
Yeah, Penn State. That's why they have a new offensive coordinator too.
No, yeah, that was it's like they've just literally grinded out. But I am excited. I think that it's two big names. You got a lot of big names in this. And Washington,
it's a helmet game. You talk about Michigan and Alabama.
Washington's like a low-key program nobody talks about. They've been in these playoffs before. This isn't
played Alabama and Atlanta.
This isn't a new thing for them. I mean, Washington's a good team, and if you watch, again, they do frustrating things. The quarterback, I guess maybe you can compare him to Milroe, where he'll make he'll come up and short on a pass or long on a pass, but the guy can sling it. He's got this sidearm throw. I mean, he's got those different arm angles, and they're going to try to shut down the run. And Texas is down a running back, right? Aren't they down there leading rusher? I saw him on the sideline.
Yes, he's out.
I don't know if he's out for the year or what he is.
He is, I believe. And you think about the transfer portal with quarterbacks. It's kind of odd that 3 of these 4 teams in this playoff, I say only 2 have transfer quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers started out at Ohio State. I think people forget about that.
Yeah.
Penix was at Indiana and then went to Washington. But with McCarthy and Milroe, you're talking about quarterbacks for Michigan and Alabama, respectively, that were, I guess you could say, organically developed within the program.
Even McQuinn, I know he's a transfer by definition, but the guy skipped it.
It's like he went to Ohio State to get NIL.
He did.
An NIL truck or something.
He skipped his senior year. I looked up. I don't even think he's 21 yet. I think he's a year ahead. Or I know he skipped his senior year, and went to Ohio State, cashed in some NIL stuff, and then came back to Texas, where he was committed to begin with, and there was a coaching change, I believe, right?
I feel like that may have been going to Sark, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was. I don't know how you're a quarterback and go, crap, Sark's coming.
I got to get out of here.
Sark's coming. I'm like, shoot, say less. I'm like Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction when the wolf's coming.
I'll be there next Monday.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach.
There it is. The Alabama Crimson Tide back in the college football playoff will take on Michigan. That is a New Year's Day game. It's the early game of the semifinals, Tim. Alabama, Michigan set for around 4 Central kickoff from Pasadena. And then in the other semifinal that evening, kind of jealous, man, because I like New Orleans. But Washington and Texas in the Sugar
We went
Bowl.
we went there last year to see Alabama in the bowl game, and it was great. A lot of fun, you know how we are about New Orleans, but that would have been I think the Alabama team itself will enjoy California. I think this team kind of likes to go out and see different things and experience that. And a lot of their biggest games were on the road. So getting out and, where have they been? Auburn and Kentucky this year. Is that the biggest road games as far as
Texas A&M?
Texas A&M? That was definitely a big one.
Yeah.
A little bit out of their element. So I'm curious. I mean, we did this right after the show. Can't wait to get on Twitter and hear all the
See
geniuses
the bowl
and
matchups.
their hot takes. I saw the boys killing was David.
I think Alabama getting in, or the SEC getting in the playoff too, was big for some other teams that were hoping for those those New Year's Six spots, like Missouri, like maybe
absolutely.
Ole Miss. Because if the SEC doesn't get in, then Alabama and Georgia slot down
Absolutely.
into
Bama
those New
probably
Year's Six games. And you know what else comes into play? Bonus money for coaches when they start getting bumped down. A lot of these coaches, I'm sure Drinkwitz at Missouri, he has a bonus for a group of six, New Year's Six game, let alone the college football playoff. So financial, Charlie Potter checking in. I love it. Financial implications. Speaking of which, Charlie Potter said he can't wait to send his Cali expense report.
I thought about that right when it hit. I knew.
Look, yeah, well, Tim, there's like 5 of us going out there, so we'll all be, getting that into you.
This Charlie Potter though gets on the road and he's like steak and caviar, lobster tail kind of guy. I gotta. No, in all seriousness, Charlie does a great job.
He's not In-N-Out Burger in California.
Charlie is spendthrift on the road. Does a great job for us.
Charlie's the best, man.
That's a scary cartoon thing he's got going on. That guy's got
it's
white
a little
eyes.
Creepy, but
Come on, Chuck. Come on, baby.
It works. It works for him. We love it, Charlie. It'll be a great trip back out to California for Alabama and its fans. Again, the last time out there, Texas in that BCS national championship game. My only problem is, especially on a stage with New Orleans, is that my experience out there previously was that the area, it's just so big and vast, and there's so many things going on. And the Rose Bowl isn't central to like an entertainment district like the Superdome is. It just feels like another football game out there. Whereas in New Orleans, it is a week-long party.
It's where, New Orleans is a walk-in city. We go there. We never get back in our car once we arrive. We went before Thanksgiving, the weekend, to see the Pelicans couple of games. We go to eat, walk, and watch either the Pelicans or the Saints or Alabama if they're there. But we don't get back in our car once we park it. You know what I mean? We're not like, hey, let's drive over to the quarter. So you're right. I mean, it's right on you. You get out and you can find plenty to do. And even though that city doesn't seem big, it's got enough restaurants that you can absolutely find. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Go to the Garden District. Go to Carrollton.
There's anywhere. It's like being in New York City. You can find food. Good dining anywhere. They literally can't sell it out. And also, it's fun to be there. It'd be fun to be there when you have teams like last year, a team that's probably never been to New Orleans, and you could tell how much they were enjoying it, being on bourbon and doing all that stuff, and for the first time. But I think we're happy. Charlie likes to travel.
Charlie loves it. He likes to drive though. I don't think he'll drive that one. So
he might. This dude's he's a grinder.
He is. There's no doubt about it. Hey, well, good stuff, Tim. We'll wrap it up. We've got continuing coverage, obviously, at BamaOnline.com between Charlie, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein, and then, as we said, there is so much on the recruiting trail, whether it's high school, portal related. We're going to have all of that for you as it breaks as well. You want to hang out with us on the roundtable or premium message board, Tim. That's the best place to do it.
Last night, if you saw, one of the highlights was Joseph Hastings and Andrew Bone getting those recruits' reactions last night. Joseph and Andrew woke me up texting where Bama coaches are going, where everything that's happening. Because, the thing about it is they got the banquet, right?
Yeah.
But if they've got to be in wherever tomorrow, they'll fly out tonight, get their hotel, and hit the ground in the morning. I mean, these guys are going to get out there and grind. And it's not just, you still want to walk through the halls of those 25 guys, right? The accidental bump. You've got to take advantage of the openings, no doubt.
Hey,
there's a lot of the one thing about it, there's not quite anything like Nick Saban being at a high school, right?
Yeah.
But you get the play-by-play, the teachers tweeting it, and
Oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's still a big deal, Tim, as we learned once again last night. Nick Saban's still a pretty big deal.
Yeah, the reaction, the negative reaction tells you how big a deal it is.
Has anybody checked in on David Pollock? Can we get an update?
No, maybe. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I will say this about him. He handles it well. He kind of owns it. So some of these guys say it to get a reaction, but he's really stupid.
It's just, I mean, Nick Saban's inflicted a lot of pain, a lot of emotional distress.
Look at what he's done head to head with Kirby. For you to come out here and say all this stuff, I mean, that you don't believe. I mean, that's one way to lose your job.
Oops. Yeah. Well, we'll try to keep ours at BamaOnline.com.
We're just going to keep it nice and easy and smooth. We're going to just go with the flow.
But we've got, again, a ton of stuff coming up for you at BOL. You'll want to hang out with us. Recruiting team, hoops, so much coming together this time of year. And we're very, very glad to do it. Be sure to hang out right there at BOL. Tim Watts, we'll talk again real soon. For Tim, Travis, until next time. So long, everybody.